As we move forward in the post-pandemic era, we want to prioritize our opportunities. We don't want to take just any piece of business that comes along, even though we may feel desperate or may feel that we really want to. So in this video, we're going to look at how we prioritize the opportunities that are about to come our way. I break opportunities into three different categories, and that is whales, sharks, and minnows. Whales are those significant opportunities that come along, like major or national events or long-term contracts, or high-visibility opportunities, like some of the publications that have their meetings and their conferences. Presenting there can open a lot of doors. The three categories I used to use were whales, trout, and minnows, but I changed the trout to sharks. And the reason is, buyers are becoming more and more sophisticated. Bureaus, meeting planners, agents, they're finding ways of being better at managing the conversation when they're trying to book a piece of business than many speakers are. So the reason I call them sharks is because most buyers are better at buying than salespeople are at selling, and that's certainly true in our industry. And many buyers are actually better at selling than salespeople are. This video is being used in my sales training, so that's the format, but everyone is in sales, and before we can land the gig, we have to sell. We have our bread and butter events, those events that we are most comfortable with, we're most familiar with. We use thresholds to distinguish between the three categories, and this would be the second highest threshold, and I'll explain more of that in a moment. And then there are the minnows. These are the smallest events. They're often high-maintenance events. An example would be when you're asked to speak for exposure. And when the meeting is over, they ask you to help fold up the chairs. It's that kind of thing. We don't turn them down. We just need to understand there's a time and place for those. Now, for the major accounts, you're going to have a formal marketing approach. This will include digital marketing. It requires that we have account strategies. If we're going after the big ones, then we need to have a strategy for doing that, which requires strategic thinking, not tactical thinking. We'll need to do world-class selling. If you don't have sales skills, or if you haven't had a sales training course recently, go online, find one, and take it. This involves the highest levels of relationship selling. We also combine collaborative selling, and for some of the whales, we'll be required to do business function selling if we want to distinguish ourselves from the competition. For the sharks, it's tactical management, tactical account management. Sales professionals, not salespeople, but sales professionals can be very successful here. You'll want to follow your sales process methodology. Whatever sales process you're using, follow it. Don't deviate from it. If you're using spin selling or plush selling or Sandler system, whatever you're using, stay on track and continuously increase your sophistication in your sales abilities. The minnows are very easily managed. There's typically a couple of emails or phone calls. Watch for potential for growth. If this looks like it might legitimately grow from a minnow to a shark, then you want to treat that differently than the typical minnow event. This is also a time when you can give back to the charities of your choice. I like to use a bell curve whenever possible, because with a bell curve we get a visual representation of what's happening. In the bell curve, the majority of the opportunities or the revenue or the work is in the center, and then there are the smaller areas on the outside. The center is our primary focus, and in professional speaking, that's typically going to be the sharks. Most of our events fall into this category. Then there are the two outliers, which are the minnows and the whales. The minnows shouldn't consume too much of our resources because they don't pay back as well. And we don't want too many sharks because it becomes difficult to meet all of their expectations while we're also maintaining our primary focus. A typical split when we begin our planning is 10-80-10, where 10% are the outliers and 80% of our resources are focused on our primary area of concern. This is where we want to put most of our energy, most of our budget, most of our resources. This is another version of the 80-20 rule, which you may be familiar with. Then we set the thresholds. Where will we put the thresholds for each of these categories? So let's look at these and say, okay, where might we put the thresholds? Using some arbitrary numbers, we'll say that the threshold for the minnows is 0 to almost $10,000. And then our focus area will be the 5-figure opportunities. And if at all possible, we will go to something above, let's say, $50,000. Again, these numbers are arbitrary. It depends on your market, your industry, your topic, and a host of other factors. What we're focusing on here is being a 5-figure speaker, because your annual earnings can go from 6 to 7 figures if you are a 5-figure speaker. If you're a 4-figure speaker, it's hard to reach those thresholds. Lifetime earnings for a 5-figure speaker can be 7 to 8 figures. If you go into the higher levels, then you're probably a celebrity if you're up in the 50,000 or above level, or you have some other distinguishing quality. Suppose you wanted to concentrate more of your time and resources on your focal point, that is, the sharks. You would need to figure out where you're going to find that. Typically, we take it from the minnows. If we're going to increase our focus on sharks, then we're going to decrease our focus on minnows. And what happens? What we look at then is setting a higher threshold for the minnow. We no longer take the 4-figure gigs or some of the smaller ones because we need that time and resource to focus on our key area, our focal point. There are some unintended issues that we want to look out for. There's a danger with the minnows, and that is they are too easy to close. The meeting planner calls, and they really only want answers to 2 questions. Are you available on this date? What's your fee? If you quote your fee, they say it's too high, their budget is only so-and-so, and you can capitulate and go to that or negotiate something in between. That's it. It's a shorter sales cycle. It may be a 1-call close. These people are more price sensitive than they are content sensitive. Content's important. They want the right subject matter, but they want it at the best price. Whales, however, when you land a big account, you may lose them without knowing it. They slip away unnoticed unless we're doing significant account management. We have to keep the pulse of the customer. Just because they have us coming back over and over again doesn't mean we're satisfying their desires, their outcome. We're not meeting exactly what they want. If we ever lose one, it's very difficult to get them back. And it is a much longer sales cycle. There are opportunities here, and let's look at them. First of all, with the minnows, can you beef up your website, maybe put some FAQs and some other information there that would allow these people to buy from you, not just call you, but actually put the deal together without involving too much of your time and energy? Or do you want to outsource this? Are there some people you could outsource the smaller accounts to? And for the whales, you need a sophisticated approach. Just sending a contract, just doing what you did to close a minnow is probably not going to work with the whales. Collaborative selling means we involve other people in making the sale happen. I talk to my mentors. I talk to other people. I find ways of justifying my fee so that they will understand the value they're getting from me. And then, for those regular accounts, CQI, continuous quality improvement. Continuously improve the quality of your presentations, obviously, of your materials, obviously, but also of your approach when you're addressing the customer. You'll also want to continuously improve your sales and marketing development. Digital marketing is a moving goalpost right now. You'll probably want to get some help with that, but continually improve the way you sell and the way you market. Do you need some new tools for selling? Would you need some videos or calculators or configurators? Are there some tools you could build that would help make you more successful? When we look at the bell curve, we use a sales approach called play to the 80. Concentrate as much of your time and other resources on that 80%, that group that is giving you the best return on your investment of time and money. You also want to watch for the whales who are looking at you. This is kind of a secret in the speaking industry, and that is we can go out and do a keynote or a workshop or a breakout session, and unknowingly there will be someone looking to us for extended work. We want to find a way of sensing when those people are there. We want to let people know that we do other things. So do these other whales or potential whales that are hearing you speak in a keynote or a breakout know what else you could be doing for them? So in summary, have clearly defined outcomes for whatever time frame you're looking at. If it's next year, if it's next quarter, if it's next month. Incorporate market conditions. Now, if you're selling into a current market, if the market that you're serving right now or the markets that you're serving right now are struggling and they're not using you as often as they would like to, or you would like for them to, start examining other markets. What could you do for other markets? And the same applies to industries. Are there other industries you could be working with? If you've typically worked with a given industry, are there others you could serve? Analyze the competitive strategies. Constantly look at what other competitors are doing, and then either do that better or do that differently. Either way, you can win. Do it better or do it differently. Either way, you can win. Have a plan B in case everything just falls apart, but don't jump to your plan B at the first sign of resistance. Have a burn the boats attitude. So when the soldiers were sent to shore to fight the war against ridiculous odds, the captains burned their boats so that the soldiers would know there's no retreat. You want to have a no retreat mentality. You're going to go ahead. You're going to succeed in those areas because you're going to find the areas where you can be most successful. And as you figure out how to do account prioritizing, teach others.